Once a sun-drenched sanctuary of villas, bustling marinas, and palm-lined promenades, Spain's Costa del Sol is now gripped by a dark undercurrent of fear. British expatriates, drawn for years by the region's affordable lifestyles, golden beaches, and temperate climate, are now voicing growing alarm as a surge in brutal gang violence shatters the illusion of life on the Mediterranean coast. So, the latest bloodshed has sent shockwaves through the community. On Saturday night, May the 31st, two prominent members of Glasgow's notorious Lyons crime syndicate, Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr., were gunned down in a targeted execution outside Monaghan's Irish bar in Fuengirola, just south of Malaga. The chilling attack unfolded around 11 p.m. in full view of horrified tourists and locals enjoying the late spring nightlife. Witnesses describe a vehicle screeching to a halt outside the pub, and a masked man leapt out brandishing a firearm and opened fire with terrifying precision before fleeing in the same vehicle, driven by an accomplice. Monaghan and Lyons were pronounced dead at the scene, their names instantly tying the violence to Scotland's long-running and deadly feud between the Lyons and Daniels organised crime groups. For many expats, the scene was surreal. One British resident said, "I felt like it was something out of a movie. One minute people were laughing and having drinks, the next there was sirens screaming and the sound of gunshots. This isn't the peaceful retirement that we imagined." So the Costa del Sol, it's a 90-mile stretch of coastline in Andalusia, Spain's southernmost and one of the poorest regions, and it's long harboured a dark reputation beneath its sun-drenched veneer. Within its proximity to North Africa's strategic ports and porous borders, the area has become a logistical dream for drug cartels and arms traffickers. More than 100 mafia organisations are now believed to operate in the region, including groups from the UK, Italy, Morocco, South America and Eastern Europe. The coast acts as a key gateway for smuggling operations, hash and weapons flow in from North Africa, whilst coke arrives in shipping containers from South America, often disguised amongst legal goods. Eva Villiers of the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organised Crime said, "For traffickers, the Costa del Sol is paradise. They have the infrastructure, the corruption, and a coastline where enforcement is stretched thin." The recent violence has triggered fears that another turf war may be erupting, not just between rival European gangs, but among increasingly fractured networks jostling over control over port stash houses and lucrative distribution routes. Shootings, stabbings, assassinations have become more frequent, and the public is no longer merely reading about the incidents, they're witnessing them. So in the wake of the Fuengirola double murder over the weekend, the town's mayor, Anna Mueller, has taken an uncharacteristically forceful stance. Yesterday, she convened an emergency meeting with local and national police authorities urging Spain's central government to step in. She declared, "We live in a world and at a time when crime knows no borders, and in places like the Costa del Sol, we are seeing phenomena that inevitably affects us due to their spread." Her concern was not only emotional, it was also strategic. Fuengirola, town of 80,000, swells to triple that population in the summer months, putting enormous pressure on already overstretched law enforcement. Mueller is calling for a new national police station in Fuengirola, an increase in patrol officers and specialised units trained in drug trafficking and organised crime. In her view, the silence from Madrid has been deafening. She goes, "Unfortunately, events have proven us right. Now it's necessary to have facilities that match Fuengirola's population level, as well as more officers, the ones with training and tools to deal with the reality on our streets." However, her appeals so far have gone unanswered. She said, "We need more support. We just don't have the infrastructure to deal with these gangs on our streets. That's why they're all coming over here and they're taking control." So the Fuengirola murders come on the heels of an even deeper shock to the Spanish public. I'll come to that in a moment, but since the turn of the year, well, let's go from December. So December 2024, there was a Dutchman. He was assassinated by a hitman with an assault rifle on Calle Asturias in Fuengirola. Christmas Eve, there was a German man of Arabic origin He was shot in the Christamar shopping centre in Porto Banús, but he escaped with injuries. Boxing Day, you had Swedish drug traffickers. They were attacked by a rival clan with assault rifles in Benalmádena, but survived by throwing themselves down an embankment in Arroyo Hondo. And then, 2nd of January, former Hells Angel member and ex-MMA fighter Saman Baggi was shot in the backside and testes outside the Real Paddle Gym club in Marbella. February the 9th, you had 3 British men arrested over alleged Costa del Sol kidnap plot involving cryptocurrency broker Estepona. April the 17th, there was a man who was shot in the leg during a family dispute in Portada Alta. It's a city in Monaghan. 5 individuals were arrested. And then April the 18th, a 34-year-old man was shot in the shoulder outside a Marbella nightclub at around 4:30 in the morning. He was hospitalised and the suspect fled the scene in a car. Then you had on April the 21st, a 32-year-old British man who was shot to death at around 8:30 after leaving a football match in Calahonda. The assailant fled in a car before ditching and burning the vehicle. Then on April the 23rd, a burned and tied up body was found dumped in a ravine in Mias with a hood over its head or next to it, and the victim is believed to have been dead for several days. So, as you can just tell there's a lot of violence going on in that area of Spain. So coming back to the deeper shock, which I just mentioned about a minute ago, what's that regarding? Well, it's rotten to the core. So it's the Sanchez scandal. It was the arrest of one of the nation's most senior police officers, Chief Inspector Oscar Sanchez Gil. Once hailed as a tireless investigator of financial crimes and drug trafficking, Sanchez was considered a pillar of Spain's anti-mafia fight. His downfall has revealed just how deeply corrupted has infiltrated the state. Early this year, police raided his home near Madrid, and inside they discovered 20 million euros in tightly packed 200 and 500 pound notes hidden in walls, cupboards and even buried in the garden. Additional stashes were later found in his office and a beach property in Alicante. Sanchez, it turns out, wasn't simply on a trafficker's payroll. He was a full-blown partner, using his position as the head of Spain's economic and tax crimes unit to sabotage investigation and shield major drug shipments from scrutiny. The final straw appeared to have been Spain's largest ever drug seizure, 13 tons of coke hidden in bananas from Ecuador. A senior investigative source said he had absolute control over what containers were searched and what were left alone. That's power only someone at the very top could wield. He was the one dictating which containers to look at and which containers to leave. However, he was being watched for about a year before this big bust came. So the scandal rocked confidence in Spain's institutions. So between 2010 and 2020, there's been 148 Spanish police officers who've been convicted of drug-related corruption, and many fear Sanchez's arrest is merely a tip of the iceberg. So the implications stretch far beyond Spain. So with over 300 tons of coke seized by EU nations in 2023, 75% of it in Spain, Belgium and the Netherlands, Europe has become the epicenter of the new narco economy, one that thrives on weak oversight, international mobility and transnational cooperation between crime syndicates. The Costa del Sol, the effects are painfully visible. Expats seeking of growing unease, of not letting their children out at night, of second-guessing property investment, and of once thriving towns quietly adapting to the rules of a parallel underworld. There was a quote from a Briton that went over there for retirement. She goes, "I feel abandoned. The police are doing what they can, but it's obvious they're outgunned. This is no longer just a local problem, it's international, and it needs to be treated that way." The mayor of Fuengirola would agree. She said, "We must lay all potential threats on the table and prepare ourselves to confront this new reality. We need far greater involvement from the state with resources, with will, and with urgency." Until then, the message from those living on the Costa del Sol is stark. Beneath the postcard perfect scenery, there's a war being waged, and the front line runs right through their neighbourhoods.